What's up, and welcome to a very special episode of First Geek 411. I'm your host, Cameron Franklin, and with me, as always, as we brave this post-apocalyptic mushroom wilderness, still surviving on West Coast, Best Coast, is Emma. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's a good time to live and have fun tattoos.
Yeah. You are right on theme for what is happening, and that is fantastic. And so, um, people that are also like tuned into Karen plus Deanna will know that I'm testing some new streaming stuff, that we're also testing that for here. Hopefully everything works. We did already have some pre-stream chaos / beginning of the stream chaos ensue as I try to move us over to like a different way of managing things on my end. So here we are. Like, I did not necessarily mean to do this as also working on the new overlay, but like, why not both? Will this break the chat functionality on this stream? Maybe. So
Porque
we're
no
gonna
los
just
dos.
find out.
You
And
know
so,
what?
um, and so, okay. Sneaky says, okay. Sneaky's message did pop up. Thank you so much, Sneaky, for coming in. Okay, I was worried. So I'm sure most people don't care, but basically, the way that
Details, man.
yeah, we're using Stream Elements multi-stream now instead of using a separate streaming platform to multi-stream.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cool things is that lets me house both Karen plus Deanna and First Geek as just like sliders for where am I streaming to. Problem is, it means I'm hosting Karen plus Deanna and First Geek as sliders for where I'm streaming to. So I was telling Emma, there's a very good chance I messed this up at some point in time for all of this. And so we're going to just like live our best life and hope.
Just gonna
And
go to the
so,
wrong channel.
yeah. And so we're going to just like, fitting with the theme, we're going to endure and survive and hope everything works out and all of that kind of stuff. And so, for this week, we are, of course, chatting The Last of Us Season 2 Spoilercast. We'll, of course, try to go in and kind of do some high-level stuff and then jump into spoilers. And we'll try to give a good warning for when that is going to be. But just be aware, this is Last of Us. Spoilers for the whole series. We will be discussing the stuff in the games that have not happened yet. And we'll be discussing any sort of other stuff. And so just be aware, this is full spoilers, full all that kind of stuff. So, but before we get into that, we are going to, of course, catch up and kind of see what we have been up to. Oh, and I need to say, you can find us around the internet as First Geek 411. You can also join our Discord server. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on Twitch. Sometimes also on Cameron plus Deanna, potentially, for when I mess that up. Monday nights, 6:30, 6:45 Mountain Time. And you can find all of our videos over on our YouTube where you can like, comment, and subscribe. So, Emma, what have you been up to this past week?
A couple of fun things. I started a new book. Started reading the first Outlander book, which is also a TV show. It's a lot of fun. It's mostly a historical. Well, it is a historical fiction, with a little bit of time travel involved. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy it because I watched a good chunk of the TV show, and decided that I was gonna read the books. That was a good time. And part of that was I started or listened to a chunk of the audiobook of it when I was driving back from San Jose, where I was celebrating my cousin's baby's first birthday. So that was a lot of fun. I was up there for the weekend with family, celebrating, and just hanging out with family, and that was really fun and great. And I got to hang out with a bunch of dogs, and that was even better. And that's been a pretty quiet week. Everything's better with dogs. And it's been a pretty quiet week overall, just in terms of fun stuff. But I did start watching literally just this morning the first episode of The Age of Umbra which is Critical Role's new short series that they're putting up. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm not super far into it yet, but it's a good time, and I'm enjoying it, and it was going to be fun. So that's about all I did this week.
Yeah, I have Age of Umbra downloaded on my phone. I'm going to start it Wednesday when I go to the gym.
Yep.
And so, well, I say that. That's my intention. I might not be able to wait because I'm very excited for Daggerheart content. And
yeah,
so
me too.
I'm super excited to jump in. Also, what's up, Tri? And I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with this. I loved their session 0. That was super fun. And then, yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with this. I think they said 8 episodes. And so
that sounds right. I haven't been keeping super in touch, but I figured I saw it was up when I went to YouTube today. So I clicked on it and was like, why not?
Also, while not season 4 or campaign 4, for people that have been following along at home, someone did predict that we would get a session 0 in the start of something the week before, like Daggerheart released, and here we are.
We are.
Good job. And so, on my end, I have been playing a lot of Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
Nice.
I am almost done, Emma. I am like at the finish line. And this game is so good. And I know I've gushed about it like every week.
Constantly.
And constantly. To an annoying point, might I add. And the only thing that I'm missing is I get a character to level 99. I currently have characters at level 97. Okay. I have to defeat the final like secret boss. And then I'm missing one collectible that I get for beating that secret boss. And so
you're like right there. You're super close.
Yeah. And I fought the boss just for funsies at like level 70 or something, and it did not go well. And so I've just decided that like I was going to do everything else. And then once I have like level 99, I'm going to go back and fight him. And so, but I've done all the other secret bosses. I've done like all the other fetch quests, find the stuff, do all of that. This is all that I have left, and I'm so excited. We do have Summer Game Fest this Friday. Also, shout out, I should be joining Nate over on Checkpoint Church Friday night to watch that, unless things change, but shout out to that. Hopefully we'll be over there. I'll post in the Discord. And then in addition to that, been watching the finale of Doctor Who. So we'll be doing our spoiler cast on that next week, because I know we've been talking in Discord, but we have thoughts and feelings, and I'm excited for us to talk about
both good and bad.
Yeah, both good and bad. And then I don't know how easily with these new views you'll be able to see, but I went to a con over the weekend, and I picked up a whole bunch of new art and merch and stuff. And It was amazing, and it was a great time. It was our local Dallas fan expo, and so it was super cool. I'm going to just show off one thing. I showed off the other pin that I got on Cameron plus Deanna, but I got Avatar and Pikachu.
Those are fun.
And so
love that.
And I also got a Gambit pin, which is the one I showed off on Cameron plus Deanna. I got a whole bunch of art, got a new playmat, got a Gengar D20. And so, got some
and
stickers.
For the people who are not in the Discord, this is related specifically to your shirt. There is going to be an in-person team up at the end of August. Yes. We're all meeting up at PAX West. This is related somehow.
Yes. Somehow.
So it's very
Conventions
exciting.
Are always related, yeah. And so we do have plans for PAX East, or PAX West, sorry. Very excited. We'll figure out like if other people can go, we'll definitely try to like hang out and do stuff. And otherwise, we're going to just be exploring the show floor and stuff like that. And so, very excited for those vibes. And then, book-wise, I had kind of taken a break from reading comics. And so, like, I'm now back into reading the, like, comics, other than, like, what we had read for book club and stuff like that. And so I have started reading Vita Ayala's New Mutants. I'm about halfway through volume 1. have some more Marauders to read and stuff like that. Very excited to be back reading comics after having not read them for a bit. Just giving myself time to like want to read them again, because I like went hard. Now we're going to back off, do other books. Now we're going back in. And so that's been really cool. And then trying to think if I had anything else specific that I had been up to. I can't think of anything else. And so from chat, we have Sneaky saying lots of reading, playing Claire Obscure, and watching Andor and Doctor Who. Nice. And then Trilena says, you're watching campaign 1, late to the party as usual. Hey, that happens. And like, this is like the very classic very classic Critical Role thing. It's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content.
And so it's definitely something to like take your time and get through. Like that's, and like for me, I kind of have to give myself permission of like, I don't have to finish this video in one sitting.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm so used to doing that, especially for TTRPG content. But obviously like it's okay to pause the video, step away. Like that's part of why I could never watch live, is it's just like the amount of like setting aside that time. But I say could never. With friends, I definitely could. And so
yeah.
But it's been very cool. I'm very excited to see where they're going to go with Critical Role. But with that, like I said at the top, we are going to be going into our Spoilercast 4. Sorry, got caught up in my tabs. For The Last of Us in a moment, we are going to keep this beginning portion spoiler-free as we talk through. Is this the exact same picture I used last time? Yep.
Maybe.
We'll be switching to a different picture once we get to spoilers. And so when that picture has changed, that's when we are in spoilers. And so we're also going to try something slightly different this week, this spoiler cast. And we might do the same thing when we do Doctor Who next week, just depending on how it goes. Where we're going to keep like kind of high level discussions, and then we're going to try to go episode by episode when we get into discussing the actual plot. Well, like I said, we'll see how that goes, see what the vibe is going to be. And however that goes, like what we feel and what people think, it can be the determination for where we go. So again, keeping this spoiler free. So for now. So the second season of the American post-apocalyptic drama television series The Last of Us was originally broadcast on HBO between April and May 2025. It's crazy the whole show was in less than 2 months, like only being 7 episodes. It's based on the video game franchise developed by Naughty Dog. The season is set 25 years after the pandemic caused by a mass fungal infection, which caused its host to transform into zombie-like creatures and collapses society. The second season is based on the first half of the 2020 game, The Last of Us Part 2, follows Joel and Ellie 5 years after the events of the first season, after they have settled into Jackson, Wyoming. So, high level, what is your experience with the Last of Us franchise? What's your like connection with the show? Kind of keeping like all those kind of vibes. So
I don't know anything about this franchise at all.
I forced you to watch this against your will.
You forced me to watch it and forced me to spend hundreds of dollars on a tattoo that's related to it. I don't know anything about this franchise. No, I love this franchise. The game and the show in general, overall. It's one of my favorites in terms of games, and I had played the second part first when it came out, and then I reverse played, so to speak. I played the second one first and the first one second, which was a wild experience, but also totally worth it because I didn't have a lot of the preconceived notions going into the second game that a lot of people had. So I understood a lot of the choices they made in terms of the story and everything. So just overall, general experience, a lot of it. I have tanked a good number of hours into both games. I have never platinumed either, but the little asterisk of that is I don't platinum most games.
Yeah.
The Horizon Zero Dawn is literally the only game I've ever like properly platinumed. I haven't even platinumed in Horizon Forbidden West, which says something, I think. But yeah, overall a solid season. Just like big picture stuff. I do feel like this is one of the complaints that I've had since the beginning of the season. I do feel like we've lost a bit of Ellie's character throughout for this in relationship to the part 2 video game. I'm not feeling as much of the urgency in sort of this revenge quest, which kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into this more in detail in our breakdowns of the episodes, but it does feel like it's like this is no fault of Bella Ramsey's, I think, but I do feel like who Ellie exists as on screen for this section of the story is different than who she existed in the video games as, and like it's not necessarily for the worse, but it's also just it's different, and I don't know if it's for the best of the story because we won't know really anything until we get the second part of part 2, which is from Abby's point of view. But that's like my biggest general big overview of the series season 2. That's like I'm like a bit more hesitant this time going in because I don't love what I'm seeing, but I also can't complain too much because they are staying pretty truthful in general to the game, in terms of storyline and even doing some shot for shots, which is great. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I came into The Last of Us when the first game released. In a lot of ways, The Last of Us is the game that or is the exception that proves a lot of rules for me. Where I don't replay games except for Last of Us Part 1. I don't do horror or scary except for The Last of Us. I don't really like overly realistically brutal things.
Yeah.
Except for The Last of Us. It's definitely the exception that, like I said, proves a lot of the rules for media that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the games, The Last of Us Part 2 is my favorite video game story. It's I kind of waffle on if it's my favorite video game of all time. I think it is. And it's the one that I think about the most, if that's it's the one that and I think about fondly the most. I love the story of Part 2. I love the directions that it goes, and I like that in a lot of ways it gets to subvert things with still having those subversions feel like they fit the world. We'll talk about some of those when we get into spoilers themselves, but I do really like that, and I like that vibe of The Last of Us. It as a series means a whole lot to me. Y'all can't see, but right here is a Last of Us poster. I know, Emma, you have some behind you as well.
Yeah. I don't know if it comes up on the screen.
That one is through. That one works for the.
Great.
And I have read the comics for The Last of Us as well. I've consumed a lot of the media around it in addition to the actual games themselves, and so as a series it means a whole lot to me. And yeah, so high level for the show, this show I feel like struggles from the thing that I've been complaining about for a long time with streaming stuff, which is that it's such few episodes that we lose a lot of the other stuff. So again, we'll talk spoiler examples later on if I remember to come back to this point. But I think that there are big sections of the game that obviously had to be cut out to make what is basically a 10 to 15 hour section 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And
which ends up being 7 hours roughly.
Yeah, roughly. And so even there, if you were going 1-to-1, that's still like roughly 3 to 4 to 5 hours of content that had to be cut. And that's just like, of course, guesstimations, but like there's also the stuff that they add into this show that I think is fantastic, the changes and like making some things different to explain different story beats to the television audience and expand characters that we didn't get to see as much of in the games because of the nature of having to play the game. And but high level, I did really enjoy this. I liked season 1 more than season 2. And to your point, I don't necessarily think that's the fault of anything other than being too few episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. It does really play into that point you're just making of trying to fit 15 hours of gameplay into 7 hours of TV show.
Yeah. And I am very curious to how season 2 is going to go, if they're going to keep, or season 3. Super confusing that it's like season 2 of the second game, but season 3 overall. I'm super curious if season 3 is going to keep the 7-episode format or if they're going to expand it out. I know we talked about this in a previous episode and or in a post-show chat. I don't remember exactly about like, because I know it came out that Craig Mazin has said that he thinks they're going to need a 4th season to finish the game. And so I'm very curious to like what that's going to look like, if they're going to do a longer season 3 and then just kind of have a couple episodes as an end cap, or if they're going to try to like give us like 3 7-episode seasons. And so I'm very curious to how that is going to play out and what that's going to be for us as fans when we actually get this other content. And so then there isn't anything else like super high level that I want to call out, other than to say, if you haven't had the chance and you have watched the show, I do really encourage you to go watch the podcast that they have on the HBO YouTube channel. And so it's typically with Troy Baker, Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann. There's some other people around who also wrote. I want to say her name's Hannah, but I think that might be wrong. She's one of the other writers and who also, I believe, worked on the game. And so I do definitely recommend going and checking that out. There's a lot of really insightful stuff. Even if you don't agree with what they did or what they said, I think there's some very interesting like background and thought process behind a lot of stuff that is very interesting. So so from here we are going to transition into spoiler chat. So we're changing the image. We are now on The Last of Us Part 2 posters, which are amazing. I love these posters, and I really hope that these posters are things that they reveal that they keep at conventions for people to sign, because these are
that would be great.
I would love to get this set of 3 posters signed by Pedro, Belle, and Caitlin.
Yep.
I think that would be super fun. I would love like to have them all framed next to each other.
I would get at least one of those.
Yeah. And so I would spend a lot of money to get all 3 of those signed. And so but let's go ahead and jump in spoiler conversations. We're going to chat characters first, and then we're going to talk through the episodes, and then we're going to talk through what is our kind of hopes and thoughts for the next season of the show. For people that are here in chats, hit us up if there's any specific questions you would like us to answer or things that you want us to expand on. We're definitely up for doing some more of that. We kind of just have our questions that I threw together for us as we go through and look at these. And so, as I like to do when we talk characters, we're going to start with our leads. We have really 3 main leads, arguably just one, but like we have 3 main leads in terms of Bella, Pedro, and Caitlin. What did you think of the 3 of them? And then also asterisk Bella as our primary lead. I know, like, what did you think of that?
I need more Pedro, even when Joel is dead. I need more of the dad. Um, but it also makes sense with the story. He's dead. Um, the funny thing about that is a lot of their viewership dropped off after the second episode. Um, because a lot of the audience is people who have not played the video game before. So like both my boss and my roommate were people who were super invested in the show but had never played the games. And then they both got to the second episode and it finished and they were like, I hate everything about this.
Yeah. And so for
Definitely
context on that number, I think they revealed that like over 60% of their viewership had not played the game.
Yeah, there you go.
Like from their market research. I don't know, like I don't remember where I heard that, but that's something I feel like Neil said in an interview or Craig said in an interview. So
yeah, but a lot of viewership dropped off after that episode. But the flashback, that's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Episode I loved, with Bella and Pedro as Joel and Ellie, was great. It is definitely an interesting format of, is it 3 leads or is it 1 lead? Like, it's kind of hard to tell because Joel is still very much a prominent figure, even when he's literally not present at all, in 5 of the 7 episodes. Because what is math? I can't even do basic anti-math, reverse math, subtraction, reverse math, as I like to call it. So it is like, well, is there 3 leads? Is there 1 lead? Who knows? I've talked a bit already about, like, I do feel like we're losing a little bit of Ellie's like character from the game, onto the screen, which is, you did make the good point of like it is harder to fit that 15 hours of gameplay into 7 hours of screen time when you're not actively playing as the characters. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also an interesting relationship between her and Dina, mm-hmm. Of how that's being translated onto screen. So, yeah.
For me, like, I love this cast, and like I was not familiar with Caitlin going into this, and so I have loved the scenes that we've gotten to get of her as Abby. Admittedly, like, it isn't a lot. Well, we can kind of discuss some of that when we discuss plot, but like I am honestly kind of shocked they're following the game format. Yeah. Like, I really thought we were going to see a lot more of their stories be parallel, just since like you're casting these people. Like, I expected that we would see like Seattle Day 1 from each of their perspectives, like not necessarily as one episode, but like that we would be jumping between them. Mm-hmm. Just based on like they're both younger like leads, and they're going to age up now between seasons. Mm-hmm. Since season 3 hasn't even started filming yet. And so I just kind of expected them to do more of that tie-in. So I liked what we saw of Caitlin. Not overly surprised. Like, if you would have told me that we were going to actually follow the game format, yeah, not surprised that we didn't get to see a lot of her. But I definitely had expected that we would see more of her, even if it was just like teases of like Abby in the background, where like we don't know what she is up
little
to.
Little traces of paths crossing over.
Yeah. So like, as an example, like we know Abby is at the hospital.
Yeah.
And so like I thought we would see some sort of teases of Abby had been there when Ellie arrived. Things like that. Like that would have been like almost like God of War-y, where like the camera never cuts idea.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been a really interesting way of handling it, where like there's not a cut, but it pans from like Abby doing something, then we find Ellie and see what Ellie's doing as she like approaches that same situation. Yeah. And again, in a game
like
that has a lot of near misses. Yes, exactly.
Aerial view, like, oh, we're here with Abby, and then an airlift, and then to the other side of the building.
Yeah. So I had expected a lot more of that. Again, not necessarily a complaint that we didn't, but I thought that was really interesting. Overall, I really like Bella Ramsey's Ellie. I I think that a big place that the character has struggled is since this show is not as actiony as the game, like we just don't see Ellie murking hundreds of people
Yeah.
and infected and all of that. Like she definitely like gets a kill count, but like it's not that many compared to the game. Like it's probably less than 5. And
Yeah.
as a pretty major change, and I feel like that does contribute to some of the struggles with her character, since
Yeah.
we don't have those scenes of like when she's in the woods and the Seraphites are there and Dina gets shot. Like there is
And
no
you take down a bunch
Ellie,
of them. Yeah.
yeah, like we don't get those scenes, and so I feel like that definitely contributes some to Ellie not quite feeling the same as
Yeah.
the game. And so
Yeah.
I would like, again, I mean, I would like 10 more episodes per season, but like
Yeah.
I would like if we would have gotten another episode or so or two, I would really have liked to see some more of that side of the show. Like I know that in season 1 there are a lot of complaints about where are the clickers, where are the infected, and like that didn't really bother me that much in season 1. I feel like they did that very well. IMO.
Mm-hmm.
But this one I really felt that criticism
Yeah.
of like it like even like not even necessarily like infected, but like where's the conflict. Like we're being told that Wolf is super dangerous, and like we see them doing a lot of stuff, but like we don't see Ellie having to deal with it in the same way that we experienced in the game. And
Yeah.
so
One of my coworkers and I were talking about this last week or the week before, because she also watches, and one of her big like bullet points on that topic essentially is that The Walking Dead has a considerably smaller budget, or had a smaller budget than The Last of Us, and was doing insanely more zombies with its like we had more zombies on screen with The Walking Dead for a longer season. Granted, the second season of that they were stuck in a farmhouse for a good chunk of time because of exactly that budget, but they still like were being given more zombies than this, while still being able to maintain storyline and stuff. So like if The Last of Us has a considerably bigger budget than what is arguably the most famous zombie TV show in existence, why aren't we getting the zombies? Where are they? Who knows? I mean, I do think ultimately the show does suffer from having shorter seasons. So.
And yeah, I mean, I'm here for in The Last of Us for the characters. I'm not here for the infected.
Yeah.
But the characters need to be like influenced by the infected, right? Like that's
Yep.
such a core part of their world that like and like I said, like I really feel like it hampers Ellie's character that like we don't get as much time with her doing that. And I would like to have seen even if it's just stuff like I know we'll talk specific episodes later on, but like, oh, they open the thing in Seattle to hide Shimmer, and there's an infected there. They kill the infected. Quickly, no drama. It's here, stab it. The rest of the building's clear. Hide Shimmer. Like, stuff like that I would have been happy with. Just to be like, hey, yeah, the infected are around, and we're not going to show every time, but like, just assume like this. Whenever they enter a building, they're clearing the building. And so I think that's something that would have done well, just again to show that like there is that physical side of it that we're just getting a lot less of.
Mm-hmm.
But oops, did the thing. Okay. And Okay. Next up, they did the thing. They killed Joel. Apparently, it was like a major theory going around that they were going to not kill Pedro, and that this was going to be a big change from the game.
Whoa now. Hey now.
And yeah.
That would be a major departure from the games, which would make people just as mad as if they had done it.
Yeah.
People are going to be mad either way.
Yeah. And so they did it. They killed him. So I want to know, I can start us on this one, but like, what did you think of how that was handled? What did you think about where it was in the show? I know for me, I was really surprised that this was episode 2. Like I legitimately thought we were gonna start the show with Joel having been captured, and like episode 1 was gonna be like the flashback of the day, explaining how he got captured, and so like the episode was gonna like start and end with Joel's death. And so I like thought that was what made sense to me. Now, granted, episode 1 ends up being a flashback that we don't get at that point in the game, that we get later on. And so that does kind of change that. And so we get it still effectively in like the first episode of the game content. And so, but yeah, I really thought that we were going to like open with, hey, we're killing Joel. Or the other way around. I was like, oh, I'm curious if like, we're going to tease that something happened in Jackson, and then we have Ellie and Dina in Seattle, and we don't really know why they're there. They're talking about Joel. But I was really interested if they were going to like tease it out that way, where like, yes, he's dead, but we're not going to show it until later on. So I was very curious if they were going to do that. That one seemed much more far-fetched. Like, I was maybe like 1% thinking that would be interesting, and 99% I was on they're going to kill him in episode 1. And then I really liked for this one that it, like, to your point, it brings up everyone that has not paid attention to the game, of like this super like this is probably like the equivalent of like in video game spoilers of like Vader is Luke's father in Star Wars. Like this is probably one of the like biggest modern video game spoiler things, is that
if you're
Joel
in the
is
gaming
dead.
community,
And so
even if you haven't played the games, you know that Joel dies in the second game.
So I was definitely shocked. And like kind of like you, I have one of my coworkers, she's watching the show. She's actually like 2 episodes behind, so she actually hasn't finished it yet, but she did not know. And so like she was really shocked when that happened. For her, I'm like less surprised about that, because like she isn't really a gamer. Like she has like kids that I think are, but like she isn't. And so
she doesn't pay attention to any of the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah. But just for like the general audience, I am shocked by the number of people that had no clue that this was coming. I'm like, what part of the internet are you on that you've managed to avoid these spoilers, and how do I get there? Like, that's the part of the internet I want to hang out on.
How do I experience the internet that you're experiencing?
Yes, exactly. And so I was, so that was really interesting. It was cool kind of seeing people see this with fresh eyes, just because like that was such a big, impactful part of the game. And so when it comes to the scene,
and it was a
huge
deal.
Yeah.
Like it was a huge deal for fans of the games. So discussion went on for months.
Yeah. And for the show, I liked, generally speaking, how they go about this. We'll talk about the episode as a whole later on, because I do have one of my biggest complaints about the show is in this episode. And
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Overall, I liked this. And in chat, Sneaky says Joel's death wasn't shocking enough. It felt like they held back. I really liked the change here to have Ellie be awake. Because, like, in the game, she gets knocked out. Yeah. And then, like, we come to with Joel dead. And I really liked that, like, she had to watch. And, like, the brutality of that. The crane shot at the end where, like, she's, like, crawled over to him, I thought was super touching. And then, like, them having to basically drag his body back to Jackson.
which is
like
rough.
It was very heart wrenching in that. Um, and I, to Sneaky's point, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't go harder. Just
Yeah.
because it is HBO. And like this is the channel that gives us Game of Thrones and
Yeah,
House of the
that's
Dragon.
what I was gonna say. Is
I was kind of wondering if they were going to go hard. I feel like they kept it. I feel like it goes harder than the game in some ways, but I am surprised that they did not go harder when it comes to that scene.
I'm with you on that. I also love the crane shot at the end, and I also was fully expecting them to like go full ham for that scene in particular, because it's literally it is very gruesome in the game, and they don't hold back with that. So I was surprised that they like cut away in certain spots and things. I am going to backtrack a little bit. The death being in the second episode, now logically it makes sense with the story they're telling. I was expecting it to be at the end of season 2, and they were going to put all the flashbacky stuff. They were going to have this be the more flashbacky season leading up to his death, and then they were going to have season 3 be, as you kind of mentioned, all of the Seattle stuff and sort of alternate between Ellie and Abby, sort of going after each other. So I thought it was going to be, end of second season. And it ended up being the second episode. They just went for it. Fortunately, because I know the games, I was able to pick up pretty quickly into the episode that that's what they're going for. But you're never ready for it. So generally that like definitely threw me off, but it makes sense now that they did and spent most of the season having it be Ellie's half of the game. And then the next season is going to be Abby's half of the game, or however it essentially plays out. Because again, Craig Mazin has said he thinks there may need to be a season 4 to fit all this stuff. I think is silly. Just make it a longer season 3. It's not like we're not used to 20 episode seasons or anything. I do feel like the in-game death for Joel hit a bit harder for me, which is weird to say because again, I played it first.
You basically just knew Joel is dead.
I just knew Joel is dead, and even then I was like, that was harsh and rough. All I know about this guy is that he's a fatherly figure to this chick. And it's still rough. Like, I have no emotional attachment to the guy aside from the, 2 hours of gameplay that I've seen so far. But I do think they did a solid job of representing it in the show.
Then, from a side character conversation, we get young Mazzino as Jesse, Isabella Merst as Dina, and of course, we also, not going to shout them all out here, but we also get Abby's crew that I assume we'll be seeing again in the next season as we switch over to her view, and I assume they'll play a bigger part next season. But with Jesse and Dina kind of being Ellie's people in Seattle, what did you think of those two characters and how they were portrayed?
Ellie and Dina. I am still... The jury is still out on the relationship and how it's portrayed on screen. Because again, I feel like a good chunk of that, like, of what we're seeing is like, is it falling into the same pit of like we're not experiencing all of the little chats they have in game while you're wandering around looking for resources,
Mm-hmm.
like, because in the
Yeah, because
game
that's
when you're in a
basically
level,
losing day one. Like the whole
yeah,
day one from the game was cut from the show.
yeah, because there's a lot of time that you spend in the game wandering around in these abandoned stores and houses and things looking for, stuff in drawers, and the characters will talk to each other when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing things. Like, there's dialogue that happens in those levels as you're wandering around, and not just in the fights. And we're not getting a lot of that, character development and relationship development in the show, because we're not seeing them wander around looking for stuff in drawers. We are a little bit, but like, it's not like the mindless task um, over and over again. And we lose day one, as you said. So, like, I don't entirely know how to feel about them in terms of that, like, friendship with each other, um, because it's like, I don't entirely love how it's being represented, because it doesn't feel the same, but at the same time, is it just because we're not giving or being given all of that development, or is it because they're
Mm-hmm.
just doing something different with them? um it doesn't mean I hate it entirely. um it's hard to imagine that they're the same two characters who have built up this relationship that we know. um I mean, it's there's not much more I can say about it until we go into your big complaint, because I know what your big complaint is and I agree with you. So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, and I agree with this statement that Sneaky has in chat. It says Isabella Merst was amazing. I preferred her character over Ellie's most episode. That statement makes me sad, um, because I kind of agree. I
Yep.
feel like Isabella like rocked this part, and I
Mhm.
feel like they gave to go to like a very different example. It's similar to in the Harry Potter movies, how they give some of like Ron's just like general knowledge to Hermione and just kind of make Ron incompetent. Like I feel like there was some of that here where they give a lot of Ellie's determination to Dina,
Mhm.
and like Dina supports Ellie a lot more, which I think is really cool. Like they're much more.
Yeah.
It felt like Dina wanted to come to Seattle versus Dina wanted to support Ellie.
Yeah.
Um, and I liked the change that we get with Joel kind of also being a father figure to Dina. I thought that was really cool. It's very believable that
Yeah.
he would like be helping this other person and kind of mentoring them as well. And again, kind of playing into, I think that plays really well into her determination and her decision to go to Seattle to make
Mhm.
this like multi-month like trek to put her life at risk. Like seeing that she has that relationship with Joel, I think is really cool. That made that a lot more interesting. And then I like that they made Dina very intelligent in this. Like Dina figures out triangulating the location of where Wolf is. She like problem solves a lot more. Um, I think it ends up almost playing for laughs how poor at planning Ellie is, which like admittedly is how the game feels as well. Like it really feels like Ellie is just chasing every lead as it comes up, but like
Yep.
seeing it represented here with Dina being like super competent and Ellie just kind of like I was just gonna run in and stab some people, like was really funny. Um, and yeah, and so I think it was a very cool change. I really liked overall Dina's character. She also has some of my favorite jokes in this season, and
Yep.
and then for for Jesse, I really liked this character, like pouring out for my guy. Like one of the like saddest deaths that just is not referenced in the moment, and just having him like run out, get shot in the face, like no pomp, no circumstance, like
down he goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Down he goes, and that's it. We wipe our hands of it.
Yeah, and like obviously he like his memory plays a part later in the story, but like just like such a brutal way for a character to go out.
Yeah.
I think the awkwardness between him and Ellie wasn't my favorite. Like I feel like that was kind of overplayed, of like it just felt very like teenage love triangle-y, which like these are teenagers and they're kind of in a love triangle.
Yeah,
so, like,
young adult, like, yeah.
but
people who don't know how to handle this scenario yet.
Yeah. And with all of that, I think it just kind of felt weird that we were like that there was this much conflict going on. And I think maybe some of that is that we do get the change of like Ellie and Dina leave like 3 months later than they leave in the game. So there has been that additional time that obviously didn't take place in the game. But it's like that was something I just wasn't a huge fan of when it comes to Jesse's characterization. I would have much rather him. I mean, we kind of get there in the end with him where like, hey, he's super frustrated with Ellie, which reasonable.
Yep.
But like is there to support Dina because he cares about Dina. And so.
Yep.
You have any Jesse thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a solid representation and shift from the game. It's just like his existence in the show definitely continues to reinforce the fact that I don't really like him as a character. Like, in the sense that that's what makes him a good character. Like, he is there to support Dina, but the fact that he's so sort of insistent on, like, the fact that he's going to be potentially the next leader of Jackson Hole, and, like, he's going to make decisions based on that, and he voted no on sending a party to Seattle to take down Abby. Like, definitely that almost self-righteous energy of, like, okay, like, you have good intentions, but you're looking at everything in very much black and white, yes and no, and that's not what life is about. Even though, like, Ellie's revenge plot, I agree with you in the sense that, like, it's not necessarily the smartest thing in the world to send, 15 of your best men to go find this one person. It's still just like, don't be that person who's going to be, dragging everyone down or whatever. So, like, I don't like him, but in the good way of, like, it's a good character. Like, I don't blame him for the choices he made. That doesn't mean they were choices I necessarily would have made myself. That kind of thing. Young Mazzino played him great, I think. Those are my general thoughts.
Then final character questions. We get the introduction to a new character played by Catherine O'Hara, playing Gail the therapist. And then we also get Jeffrey Wright flushing out Isaac, who is a character in the game, but we kind of get more backstory on him through this. And then we also get the addition of Jackson as like a more prominent like setting / character in this than we do in the game. What did you think of the three of those?
Gail is amazing, and I would have loved
the shock of no one, Catherine O'Hara plays an amazing character.
Yeah, right. I would have loved to have seen her be an actual character in the video game of just like, someone who exists in Jackson Hole, and then you get like you can find like a letter or something involving her at some point in Jackson or somewhere else where she came from, where you get to learn more about her. But she is a fabulous addition as a character that didn't exist in the game, of just this psychotherapist who gets paid in weed and booze, basically. Like, that's her payment. And is just there to semi unwillingly deal with people's trauma over the end of the world. Because, like, really, that's one of those things whenever I'm watching or reading post-apocalyptic stuff, I'm always like, everyone here needs therapy, but no one's stepping up to the plate. And here we have someone stepping up to the plate to give these people therapy, whether or not she actually wants to give these people therapy. It needs to be done, and someone needs to do it. And Catherine O'Hara's doing it in some way, shape, or form. And it is fabulous. That's how you add new characters to an adaptation, is you really think about the setting and the context of the story and go, what these people really need is therapy. So we're going to give them a therapist who's equally as traumatized by the events of the world.
A therapist who also needs therapy.
Yeah, exactly. And who admits that she also needs therapy. So she is perfect addition. 10 out of 10 as a character, and the casting for the character. Catherine O'Hara, love her. Fabulous actor. Isaac, I always forget exists as a character, honestly. Like, not to, like, in any detriment, one way or the other. It's just like, oh yeah, there's this guy who runs the wolves. Great. Okay. So any and all gripes that a wolf soldier has somehow involves this Isaac guy who's fighting the Whisper people. I'm blanking on what they're called. The cult. The Seraphites. Thank you. Like, there's just these two groups worrying at each other. And you got the guy running it all, and then you've got a couple of the soldiers who play some part in the story, and that's it. And it's like, great. I'm more concerned with the revenge plot over here. So it's not that Isaac is a forgettable character. It's just that he's just there. He's doing his own thing. Yeah, he's very much a general man, like soldier man running an army, so to speak. And that's that for Isaac. Like, he's just there. Great. It's a face we've seen on several occasions, doing his thing. No complaints. I have no feelings one way or the other towards the man. And then Jackson, I assume you're referring to Jackson Hole as the central.
It's just Jackson.
Just Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't know. I spent like 6 hours in the car yesterday, so my mind is wiped.
You're fine. It's just Jackson, Wyoming.
I'm also just thinking of Jackson Hole as in, like, skiing, because that's also Wyoming related, which is why I'm saying Jackson Hole so much. I mean, all of my thoughts and opinions once again go back to the fact that I wish I wish longer seasons were still a thing. Like, I don't love that the norm has become these short 7 to 10 episode seasons. Because I would love to see almost like a filler episode type thing of, Ellie and Dina leave to go to Seattle. And then we get an episode that's just back in Jackson Hole, and it's the fallout of them leaving. because
Yeah.
that would put some extra weight on that choice that they had made.
Yeah. Or adding to that, we know that Tommy and Jesse also left, which are like two members of the council. Like
Yeah.
that's running this town. Like Tommy is like an extremely prominent member whose wife is also on on the council. And then like I love the memes of like Jesse as like Captain Jackson. And like these are two like really prominent people. Like it would have been very interesting to look at, hey, what does this like couple months of them being gone look like for Jackson?
Yeah. Like that's not like those choices for all four of those people are gonna have repercussions on Jackson. Because Dina and Ellie leave, and if it had just been them, like, yeah, there'd be some implications and, like, impacts and, like, some interpersonal conflict, but, like, the machine wouldn't come to a halt. But then you've got these two other characters running after them, Jesse and Tommy, who are, like you said, prominent characters. That's gonna cause some major stumbling blocks in, how Jackson as a whole runs. So like I would have loved to have seen just like an episode somewhere in there of just a meanwhile back in Jackson or whatever, like people handling that. It didn't necessarily have to be like the first episode where there's a horde that comes out of nowhere and like breaks in and causes a bunch of damage. It just has to be like there's going to be some politics involved with a move like that happening. So I would have loved to see more of Jackson involved, of just like the choices these people make have a big impact on everyone in their lives, whether or not they like to think that it does. And it's Ellie going against direct orders to not do anything, basically. So I just want more of that. Like, it's a whole community that's trying to survive.
Yeah. And so for me, I agree on Jackson. I would have loved if we had even a 12 episode season.
Yeah.
Like kind of like not quite double this, but like add a good amount more. Maybe some of the episodes are like 5-10 minutes shorter or something like that.
Yeah.
But like I think it would have been very interesting to have seen more of Jackson. Like we've set up conflicts in the first couple episodes for Jackson that are just like not addressed.
Yeah.
And like and even with Joel's death, like Joel is like basically from how it's presented is like in charge of their like construction as a city. Like,
yeah.
So what does it look like with Joel gone? Like, how does stuff get taken care of? Like, we know that the mycelium is in the pipes. Like, how are we addressing? Yeah. Like, well, I'm glad we're not getting like a plumbing episode, but like that is something that I think is like that would be very interesting to see. And then you can tie that into Tommy and Jesse being gone, because now with the council being shorter, what does the politics look like as they try to figure out how to handle this without summoning another horde? Like, very curious to like what all that could have looked like. I like for this, and they did mention this on the podcast, that Jackson being attacked and withstanding siege is like a part of Jackson in the game, but we never see it.
So it's like mentioned in passing.
Yeah, it's referenced that like they've survived hordes of infected attacking the city before, and like in the game they still have like the wall and defenses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it never works out for the story for us to see them get attacked in the game, and so I do like that we get to see that. One of my favorite jokes with it was like, this is a bunch of zombies attacking a frozen city, way better than the final season of Game of Thrones. And
you broke up a little bit for me, so I missed part of that.
So it's a bunch of zombies attacking a frozen city better than Game of Thrones did in the final season. And like the attack happens when it's light outside. Like they actually practice good siege tactics. Like
great.
They have like
good for them.
They have defenses. I've also seen the call out made of like when they shoot the explosive barrel or like the barrel of fuel, it doesn't blow up. They have to then throw something at it to then have it explode.
Yep. They've got to spread out the fuel before.
So like that was really cool, and it was really cool to see how the team, like how the town's defenses would work in a way that like, again, is referenced, but actually getting to see that I think was very fun, and and I feel like it also in a cool ways played into the intelligence of the infected. Like they're not just these mindless things. Like we get to see them like move around with the bloater and stuff like that, and kind of like get behind their tank, which I think is really fun. And so I really like that. And like I said, I would like to have seen more. Even if it's
what I'm
like,
sad about?
What's that?
Tangential, kind of. I'm sad we don't get the Rat King this season.
Oh. Yeah.
I wanted the big boy.
Yeah. I was talking with someone and they were like, all we need, like, next, we got to get the Rat King. I'm like, oh, we're a ways away from that.
I know, but still.
That's something that, like, with us taking the game storytelling, like, I am surprised that we did not get more direct teases for the Rat King.
Yeah.
Like, we obviously get, we'll talk about it with the episode, but, like, we obviously do get a lot of talk with the hospital and, like, how bad things are in the basement. But, like, I am very surprised. Like, there is a cry or something that they, I think in the podcast, confirmed is the Rat King. Like,
in one of the episodes, there's like sound design that reference.
There's like an infected cry. I think it's when Ellie is in the basement of the hospital.
Yeah,
and they confirm that that's like at least it's supposed to represent the Rat King. But like I think it would have been very fun for us to have seen something more direct for what's up.
Yeah, like a shadow or a
or like other reports of like this massive infected or something like that.
Yeah.
So, for Jeffrey Wright's Isaac, love it when the game actor can play the person in real life. So.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the same actor.
Let's go there. Yeah, it's Jeffrey Wright.
I love that. Love that. Good for him.
Yeah, I feel like in this season, Isaac, like I said, is very archetypical. He is the person that is like disenfranchised, kind of breaks out on his own with these rebels, and then ends up being the exact evil that he was revolting against to begin with.
Yep.
And that's a very Last of Us problem of like we are all the reason that something like this would happen.
Yeah. Well, and Ellie in part 2 is turning into the very thing that Joel started part 1.
Yeah.
Like
it's so thematic. And I liked getting to see Isaac just fall victim to that exact same like problem. I liked his scenes, but like I'm hoping we do get more of him in the next season where we then get the story from Abby's perspective. Because we know, like, from the game, like, they meet up at one point while he's torturing somebody, like, and so I'm very hopeful that we'll get some more of that type of stuff. I'd be very curious to get to see, like, an Isaac debrief of Abby and team when they get back. Because, like, tying in with, like, the fears of the people in the town in Jackson is, like, hey, if we don't go stop them, what's to stop them from coming back?
Yeah.
And I would love to have seen that be something that Isaac plans.
Considered.
Or begins thinking about. Like, okay, so we know these people are over here. We know they have resources. Like,
can we go over there and raid them or something?
Yeah, do we go do this? Is it too far? What would it look like to send a party? Like, I'd be very interested to see a conversation like that. Again, just to, like, justify all of their fears of what could have happened. And then Catherine O'Hara, like, give her all the awards. I love this character. And as you said, I love the idea of us having a therapist in the apocalypse and having her have to deal with like things are really bad and like we're fighting for things that I was definitely not trained for and like getting through this. And then at the same time, there are also extremely realistic and like grounded problems of like Joel is having an issue with his daughter, like, and like the consequences of his actions, like for this person that he really loves, but like what he did has like caused these problems. And like, I love that we kind of get both sides of that from her character. And like we get this side where like, hey, can she protect like people in a different way than how like Joel and Tommy are protecting people? And I think that that's really cool. Again, another, if we had a flashback episode or a side episode of Jackson, like I think it would have been very interesting to have her like not breaking like doctor-patient confidentiality, but like have it be like, hey, like I'm good at reading people because reading people is what I do when I like do therapy
for my career that I had
like,
before the apocalypse started.
Yeah, like hey, people on like the board on the council, like things are bad over here. Like I don't know if y'all noticed this, but like gestures broadly at like a rebellion fomenting or something like that. Like I think that would have been very cool to see her have a bit more active part there. But hopefully we'll get more of her next season. And so, but those are the questions that we have for the characters. Let's go ahead and jump into episode chat. So we have 7 episodes this season. Episode 1 is Future Days. And so this takes place 5 years after Joel kills 19 fireflies at a hospital and rescues Ellie. They live in Jackson, Wyoming, but their relationship has become strained for some reason. Gail is resentful towards Joel for killing her husband, Eugene, while Joel expresses sadness concerning Ellie and confesses that he saved her, but omits the murder. On patrol, Ellie and Dina find an infected nest in a supermarket, and then Ellie kills a new type of infected that stalks her and gets bit. This leaves out that very important part. And so,
no biggie.
Yeah, like Ellie and Dina kiss at the New Year's Eve dance, prompting a homophobic slur from the bar owner, Seth, causing Joel to attack him, which angers Ellie. Then we also find out about the infected tendrils that are in Jackson via the broken pipe. And we end, I believe, with a shot of Abby and her friends coming upon Jackson. So what did you think of this as our kickoff to the season?
Solid start to the season. A nice setup coming off of the end of season 1 to just set everything up. Again, I love the establishing of Gail just existing in this town, giving people therapy, questionably or not, which really sets the tone of like, yeah, these people have problems. They're trying to fix them in a world
they're
where
trying.
They're trying. The resources for trying to make that happen aren't the best. They used to be the best, but they're not anymore. But you know what? They're all trying their best. I loved getting stalkers early on, even if it was just the one. And it really does, like, establish that, like, it's been like 25 years since the end of the world, so to say. So, like, as far as they know, they've figured out all of the stages of being infected. Like, it's, first you're a runner, and then, it all leads to a bloater. And if you're a bloater, like, there's no coming back from that, and good luck. Those things suck. But then, like, you interact and you discover something like the stalkers, and it just, like, shows a process of, like, you think you knew everything about the thing that ended the world, and then you discover that you don't, and not everyone's going to believe you about it. So that was fun. Um, yeah, just a fun intro into the will they, won't they kill Joel this early.
Yep.
So, yeah.
For me, kind of echoing what you said, I love the stalker and the introduction to it here. I don't think there's a stalker in the supermarket in the game. Like, it's been a while. Like, I could be wrong, but like, I feel like that was a change to move one up to that part. Um, and then I like that had this been anyone else that discovered it, the infection would have won. Like, because it did bite Ellie. Like, Ellie would have been infected if she was not the one immune person. And so I thought that that was a really interesting touch of like, this is the virus or the fungus like evolving, and like it would have gotten you. I also feel like this plays into the theme that we see, and we already referenced with like the bloater during the siege in the next episode, where like while people don't think the infection is smart, it is. Like it understands like tactics, like not like, and it's not planning a siege, but like it understands like how to protect itself in a way that like is a lot more intelligent than like I hear a noise, I run at the noise. And so I think that that was super cool. I also love that this also is like Chekhov's stalker, where like they introduce it here in episode 1. It's like, well, obviously this is coming back at some point.
Obviously. The question is when.
Yeah. And so I like that as a tease for the future. And then I like what the stalker represents of like Jackson and humanity not being safe. Like the idea that like you don't understand this infection. Like there's a lot that y'all have figured out, but there is more.
You don't know all of it.
And so I do like that a lot. And then I do like the change of moving New Year's Eve, the dance, to this part of the game.
Yeah.
Because I do think the game starts the next morning after New Year's Eve, if I'm remembering correct. And so we know that like Ellie and Dina kissed at New Year's Eve, but we don't see that scene until later. And so I liked that change. I like just putting this out as like the beginning of like, it plays into the like Jesse Dina dynamic, but like it also like gives some different context, just in terms of seeing that Dina is into Ellie, like from that point. And then I think that while I do not agree with the homophobic slur that Seth uses, I think that there's like Seth is a very interesting character throughout this story, for like the 2 or 3 like episodes that we get of him. And so I really like this. They talk about him in the podcast of the idea of like, he's somebody that like is complex, not because he grows, but just because he can believe his beliefs align with characters at different points. Like him siding with Ellie is not based on him not being homophobic, but it's based on him, like his view of what protecting Jackson looks like. And I think that that's really interesting to give that like complexity to this character, where like he is the one that stands up for Ellie, but like also still like is like not a great person. And so and maybe he's growing, maybe he's becoming better by the time that like he helps them escape Jackson, but like that's not how growth happens for people. And so I like that.
And that would have been a fun check-in for
meanwhile
back in Jackson Hole, like maybe they figure out he's the one who helped them. And you know, like people are complex.
And so I do like that with Seth. Next episode, Through the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Like no subtlety here.
Nope.
To the title of this episode. So, after taking shelter at a lodge near Jackson, Abby remains steadfast in her mission to kill Joel and her friends, while her friends, concerned about the town's security, consider retreating. After scoping out Jackson, Abby accidentally awakens a large horde of infected hiding under the snow. She escapes and is saved by Joel on patrol with Dina. The Horde makes their way to Jackson, leading to a battle. When the town suffers heavy damage and casualties. Abby brings Joel and Dina to the lodge, where Dina is, this says knocked out. She's drugged. Like
fully drugged.
Yeah, and Abby reveals herself to be the daughter of the Firefly doctor who Joel killed at the hospital. She shoots Joel in the leg and then beats him with a golf club. Ellie enters the lodge and is restrained by Abby's party and forced to watch helplessly as Abby fatally stabs Joel in the neck with a broken golf club handle. Ellie swears to kill Abby, and Abby's group leaves. As Jackson begins to recover from the battle, Ellie, Dina, and Jesse return home with Joel's body.
You have issues.
Yes. So one of the big changes in this season is that in this scene in the game, the patrols are Ellie and Dina, and then Joel and Tommy. And so it's Joel and Tommy that rescue Abby. And then when they get to the building and Tommy says, like, introduces them, that's when everything clicks for everyone. This also gives us the scene where we know that Ellie and Dina have kissed, but we don't know anything about that. But then when they get snowed in, they have a moment, we'll just say, for they hook up, and and then after their hookup, is when I believe Jesse shows up and they find out that Joel and Tommy are missing and cannot, they need to be
and
found,
have not checked in.
Yeah, and so I think was a major change, and like I don't dislike postponing more of the relationship between Ellie and Dina to later episodes after they get to Seattle, and giving us more time with them as like, what are they? But at the same time, I do feel like this was kind of the start of like a will they, won't they, that like we didn't need. And like, you can just like let them be together. Yeah. And I don't think that necessarily would have changed a ton in the wider story if they just like let them have like like flashbacks.
They
of
tried
them
to
being
push
into each other. Yeah.
Later on, and it didn't work.
Yeah. And it definitely changes like the context too of like the guitar scene where it's like Ellie like not sure if Dina has feelings, but like still playing this song and stuff like that I feel like in the game is just different because they've traveled to Seattle as a couple. And so
and I think that to your point plays in a lot to my hesitation about how I feel about them as a couple in the show versus in the game, because it does like give it a bit of a different context of it, like, oh, it was the time spent traveling to Seattle from Jackson that sort of like got them both interested in the other versus the 3 years leading up to the start of this and all these other things. I think honestly my biggest complaint, are you done? Sorry, didn't mean to.
If you want to jump in, feel free to jump in.
You go, you finish.
We already talked about the siege. I really like the siege that we get in this. I like the symbolism of it, of like Joel just wants to get back and protect Jackson, and this idea that like Abby showing up doesn't just spell doom for Joel, but she inadvertently brings the horde of infected to Jackson. Like this is not, as far as we're to believe, this is not a problem they would have had to have dealt with had Abby not shown up. And so I really like that symbolism. There's also like the symbolism of like the storm on the horizon, that like, oh, the storm is out there. It's in the mountains. We should be safe in Jackson. Just kidding. We were not. And so I think that that's super interesting as well. And then I had thought of something else and then with Abby's crew, I really like their hesitancy and them just wanting to leave. of like they basically send Abby out to watch, hoping that it will cause her to realize what a bad idea this is.
Yeah.
And how they're bought in the sense of like their help. They are Fireflies. They were there in the hospital. They knew people that died, but they are not bought into like the revenge mission in the same way that Abby is. And so I liked that dynamic, because I feel like it makes their deaths more like complex. Of like they do of course help with killing Joel, obviously, but like they're not bloodthirsty in the same way that Abby is. And I feel like it plays more into that idea of like bad company corrupts good character motto.
Yeah.
Of like they really don't want to do this, but because Abby does, they get pulled along, and that ends up costing all of them their lives. Like again, it's a very like interesting symbolism for the act of violence of like this fight is between
these
like
two people,
Abby and Joel, and then Abby and Ellie, but then all of these other people get dragged into it by association with Abby. And so I think that that's super interesting. And like even similar with like Jesse's death as well, of like he gets dragged into this fight that's not his fight, but he ends up as a casualty to this other conflict that's going on. And I think that symbolism is really interesting.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I do wish in that regard that with this episode, it had not been revealed that she was the daughter of the doctor. Like it like she goes on this monologue to Joel. She goes on a whole monologue and spiel to him of like, oh, like you're a guy, you're the guy. Like I do wish it had been kept kind of a secret, so to say, like secret in the sense of like people who haven't played the game don't know, and only revealed later on of like her connection, because there is that interesting dynamic between her and the rest of the team, like getting to witness those conversations between them and her of like, there's always time to turn back, we can leave, we don't have to do this. And I feel like it would have almost played a bit better this season of like getting the suspense of her admitting her identity almost later on down the line, rather than just saying up front like, this is who I am. Because I do think they hold that information back for quite a bit in the game. I don't remember for certain.
Yeah, I could be misremembering. I feel like that she is from Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Like that's why, but I don't remember if her dad is the doctor at that point, or if he was just someone that Joel killed. But I just don't remember exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like that would have been a fun way to approach that, or an interesting way to approach that, of just like holding back on that bit of it, of like, maybe even if Ellie doesn't know, I don't know if Ellie actually knows that there's that connection.
I don't think Ellie
knows,
like understand or knows specifically. I mean, I think she suspects, like, but it's like, I think, I don't remember when, but I feel like Ellie learns that they're Fireflies. And I think once she finds that out, it's like, oh, it's probably this. But again, I could be misremembering.
Yeah. So either way, that thought, I generally am like, I don't love monologues that are also like heavily exposition or whatever. Granted, a lot of monologues are also exposition, because that's just the name of the game. But I don't love them, and it did feel a bit exposition-y to me. And we've talked about this before or earlier. Just Joel dying but like we were expecting it to be more brutal, and it wasn't. Ending the episode with the song that Ashley Johnson recorded for the game was killer. Anyone who doesn't know, Ashley Johnson voiced Ellie in the games. And it was gut-wrenching to hear it at the end of this episode. And yeah, those are my thoughts of just like that episode.
Yeah. In chat, Sneaky says, especially with Owen playing the "We Let You Live" card as a way to stop Ellie from killing him and Mel. So like in regard to like the consequences and the casualties, like to me that like I hate that he tries to play that, because like just in the sense of like, I mean, sure, you did the least bad thing as you were here to murder someone. And like, I feel like had we seen more of him actually trying to stop once that arrives, like I feel like that would have been a lot more sad if they would have had him commit or had the characters as a whole. Like we get it with Mel, but like if we would have had more of the group like trying to stop Abby in the moment of like, even if it's just stop it from being as brutal, like they're trying to stop that side of her, not that they're trying to stop her from killing Joel. And then Sneaky also says, make a mystery more out of why Abby kills Joel and drop the big reveal later in the season. I love in this, I don't remember which episode this is in, it might have been this one, that we get the Ellie, or sorry, that we get the Abby in the hospital hallway flashback, because that's like such a recurring part of the game.
Yeah, I would have loved that to have been later, honestly. Yeah. Like, that plays into the I want her reveal to be later. Yeah.
So I think it's cool that we get it, but I would have loved more ambiguity, like that this is her, like it's her talking to herself and being like, don't go in there, you're not gonna like what you see in there. And then like we could have gone to her opening the door. Like I think that they could have played up the mystery of doing that, where we have like she has this recurring dream, and like getting to see the dream progress as like more is revealed about who she is, until we eventually get the episode where it's revealed that her dad was the doctor that was killed. I think that would have been really interesting for her. The next episode, The Path. 3 months later, Dina tells Ellie that the group who killed Joel is named the Washington Liberation Front, and they're based out of Seattle. There's a town hall meeting where Ellie calls for them to send a group out for justice, not revenge, but the town council rejects the proposal. As Ellie gathers weapons to leave for Seattle alone, Dina tells her she will join, bringing the appropriate supplies and planning a travel route. Seth, who vocally supported Ellie in the town hall, helps them leave Jackson. The following morning, Ellie leaves coffee beans on Joel's grave. Later, she and Dina encounter a group of dead Seraphites, including young children, the sight of which causes Dina to vomit. Wonder why. They arrive in Seattle and note the lack of wolf members. Make the like, this should be easy, as we then get a scene of gigantic wolf support and power. And so for that like dramatic irony. So for this episode, I love that we get to see the town hall meeting. Like I love that this again plays to the brashness of Ellie, that like Jesse shows up and he's like, hey, write things down. Like you are not good at speaking off the cuff. Like you need to convince people. And then we of course get that vote failing. I think is super like obvious. Like that's clearly how that was gonna go. But like
I would have been surprised if it hadn't failed.
Yeah. And then I love that again, kind of playing into that like Dina is smart. Like she knows Ellie is gonna run. And she has already planned the route to Seattle. She already has supplies, as Ellie just has like 15 guns. She's like, I'm going. I guess I'm taking all of this. Like
we've got the brains and the bronze.
Yeah. And so I do think that that's cool. And again, I feel like that's a lot more believable because we get this idea of Joel also as a father figure for Dina. We later find out that Dina has no family because her family was killed by raiders. And so kind of, again, similar to Ellie, Joel is this surrogate father figure for her. And so I liked that a lot. And we don't find that out yet, but like we of course do know that Joel is like a father figure to her. So I liked this. And then already talked about Seth. I think it's really interesting that we see him help them leave. And it is not like a full redemption for his character, or is not intended to be a full redemption for his character. But rather is him like not being,
trying to make amends.
Like, trying to make amends, but like this is also his views. Like it's not like he's not homophobic. Like it's just it's like their views happen to align here. And so I do think that's an interesting role for that character. So what do you think of this one?
Sorry, I lost my spot on the Wikipedia page. Because I've been glancing through this. I know. Yes, I picked up on that. I do love that they're, again, we've touched on this. Like Seth is a great example in a show like this that like human beings are still complex even under insane conditions of the end of the world happening and living with the fact that creatures exist out there that were previously literally just things we heard about in stories. Again, the Dina coming to Ellie's garage apartment, fully aware that she's planning on leaving, very much like a Brains in the Bronze, like Dina being the friend that she is just like, okay, like we're gonna put some actual boots on your feet instead of the Converse you insist on wearing. I'm not gonna allow you to wear your Chucks. Like if you're gonna do this, put on some actual boots, which is amazing. Because she does, I think she does a chunk of the second game in Chucks as well, which is just in general solid friendship right there.
Is like, a choice.
It's a choice, and it was a good one that was made. Predictable that the town council rejects it. Given that this season was only 7 episodes, I do wonder how much of it, like if it was worth spending 3 episodes, 3 of the 7, just sitting around almost like debating these kinds of things. Well, I mean, I guess it's 1 episode debating after Joel dies, and then they go. But I don't know. It's a lot of my complaints come down to if we could just have a few more episodes a season. If you're gonna pace it out this way, just give us like 2 more episodes to really get into it, because right now it doesn't feel like we're getting into the gritty of it. But I do love that Dina's supportive as a friend or a girlfriend or, you know, whatever state that she exists in with Ellie. And it's just like, fine, I know she's going to run off whether or not I go spend time with her. So I might as well at least force her to put on some boots before we leave. So.
Also, sorry, stream. I muted myself on Discord for Emma, but not for y'all as I coughed. Yeah. And so I think this is cool. Again, I love the Dina Ellie dynamic that we start to get built out more and more here. So next episode, day 1. Is it confusing that day 1 is an episode, but not day 2 or day 3? Yep. But day 1, we get a flashback to 2018, Isaac, where he kills his own Fedra squad, and switches his allegiance to Wolf. We kind of get the background of like why that all happened. And then again, I love the idea of him becoming the evil. We then flash forward to the present 11 years later, where he is now Wolf's leader and is interrogating and later kills a Seraphite who refuses to share his group's location. Ellie and Dina's first day in Seattle sees them stumble upon the remains of a conflict between Fedra and Wolf, and then they hide out in a music store where Ellie serenades Dina. At night, they find several Wolf soldiers brutally murdered by Seraphites and evade an incoming Wolf backup squad. To escape, the Wolf and infected into the subway, where Ellie is bitten while saving Dina. As they hide at the abandoned theater, a heartbroken Dina prepares to shoot Ellie, who explains that she is immune. Dina confesses to Ellie that she is pregnant, and they hook up. And then the next morning, they overhear that that Wolf, including Nora, are based out of the Lake Hill Hospital. And so, what do you think of this episode?
Again, Isaac is just kind of there. We get a surprise cameo from Josh Peck, of all people.
Yes. This random awful
it's
person.
Just like and suddenly Josh Peck is here.
His character. Yeah, his character is an awful person.
His character is an awful person. Yeah. And he's just here for like a good 5 minutes, and then he dies. Spoiler alert, Josh Peck dies. Again, Isaac he's just around. He's just a guy. I
do really like the brutality of this scene, though.
Yeah, it's brutal.
He gets out and meets with them, and then he just like walks back, pops the grenades, tosses them in, locks them in the vehicle.
Like that was okay. That if he continued to be like that, and like we got more like moments like that of him throughout the season, like he would feel much more memorable to me. But right now he's just like, he had that one terribly great moment, and then the rest of the time I was like, oh, okay, it's this random guy again. Like I don't even remember his name, but it's that guy. Great, solid. He just exists. So yeah, that's Isaac. Again, I've talked about that a lot. It's just the guitar scene, great. The love is solid. I do love that they continue to, with these episodes, pull like specific scenes from the game and like frame them up and to match the game, because they've done throughout the entire show, but we're seeing it a lot again in the second, them framing the scenes that are, they have scenes that are direct from the game that they are doing in the show, and they are also framing them in the way that they are framed in the game. They're not just scripted to be the same or similar. And I think that's really cool, because they're like, the guitar scene is one of those ones where there are iconic screenshots or grabs from that scene. Like there's the dagger that is stabbed into a table next to a guitar, that anyone who's played The Last of Us would look at it and go, that is The Last of Us. And I know for a fact that that is The Last of Us. And they recreate it in the show. And it's great. And I love that. And this episode has quite a bit of that. It's a whole scene in the theater where it's like, oh, I'm immune. Oh, I'm pregnant. Plays out differently than it does in the show or in the game. And I don't like the like, I wish it had more long-term tension. I wish it hadn't resolved so quickly, to say the least. It felt like it resolved too quickly to me between them. I would have, and Dina didn't even really fully react to the fact that Ellie was immune, and Ellie didn't even fully react to the fact that she was pregnant beyond, oh, I'm gonna be a dad. Great. Like, valid response, but like, you're not gonna question the fact that she didn't just question that you're immune, aside from just sitting there for several hours with a gun trained on you while you slept. Let's
I do like
pull it back.
with that scene. We get like the symbolism of Joel and Tess like having to be convinced, where they have her sit in this area and like watch her. Like, I do like that. Again, it makes Joel feel like he's still there. Of like, we see how he has trained these people, and so even when he's not around, like we get another reference to him in the final episode. But like, I love that we get to see that as like, okay, well, here's how I convinced these other people. Like, here's how I'm going to convince you too.
Yeah.
I do think it would have been interesting there if we would have seen more of the night from Dina's perspective as she's dealing with like this conflict of like no one is immune, but like this one person that she loves is saying that she is. Do you trust her?
Yeah, actually dealing with that in her head. Yeah.
I do think that would have been very interesting to see more of, but I jumped in. Do you have any other thoughts?
Nah, that's it. That was my big, like, that's one of those moments that did sort of bother me, but that's it.
For me, I like this episode. I like that we get the subway scene. I think that scene is very cool in the game, and getting to see, it's like, I think it's the first time in the game you can pit the factions against each other, where you can get the click, you can create noise where wolf soldiers are, and that will draw the clickers to that area to then attack them. I think that's really cool. It was a very cool mechanic, and so I'm happy that we got to see that play out here. And this scene, I think, kind of went the other direction for me that I feel for a lot of stuff of like, I wish there was less infected here. And like, I wish we would have thus, like, this actually felt like a battle that they could win, or they could win a portion of it. Whereas like, it really felt like they're just running, which like reasonable when there's this giant swarm, but like, I think it would have been interesting if we could have gotten some more wins on their side. And then, this does have like one of my favorite jokes with the pregnancy tests, where Dina or Ellie's like, how do these work? And Dina's like, I peed on them. And she goes, she's really confused and is like, what do you mean? She's like, no, that's what you're supposed to do. I don't just like pee on random stuff. Like, I loved that as like this gag of like, clearly like they would not know like how a pregnancy test works. So like, I think that was a funny joke. And then I liked the idea of like Ellie doing the like, well, are you sure? And then Dina pulls out another one and then pulls out another one, and she has like 4 pregnancy tests. And so I
think that's a lot of women reacting to that kind of information.
Yeah. And I again, in something as crazy as post-apocalypse, I really like this as like a very human scene of like, oh, am I pregnant?
A very
I'm take
solid
a whole
human
bunch of
reaction
to confirm. And so, so I did like that. And then I like our introduction to Isaac in this episode, with both his flashback and him torturing the Seraphite. And I wish we saw more of him being this awful person. Like, again, I assume that we're going to get more of that next season. But for as like cool in like a brutal way that his introduction is, like, we then don't really see him do anything else like that for the rest of the show. And so once we get focused in on Fedra more, or on Wolf more, I hope that we get to see more of that. And then guitar scene, super cool. Glad that we got that. Next episode, Feel Her Love. En route to the hospital, Ellie and Dina encounter more dead Seraphites. Ellie questions bringing Dina, and Dina reiterates her commitment to their quest for revenge. They are ambushed by stalkers in an abandoned warehouse and saved by Jesse, who has arrived in Seattle with Tommy to look for them. Pursued by a wolf, the 3 enter a local park and witness the Seraphites disembowel a wolf soldier. Dina is shot in the leg with an arrow, and Jesse carries her out of the park while Ellie creates a diversion to attract the Seraphites. After evading them, Ellie continues to the hospital alone. She chases Nora into a quarantined basement that has been covered in airborne cordyceps, which infect Nora but not Ellie. Nora realizes Ellie is the immune girl for whom Joel had killed the Fireflies, and then Ellie reveals that she already knows what Joel did to save her and beats Nora with a pipe to find out Abby's whereabouts. As referenced in the first episode, Chekhov's stalkers in this, and I really like the setup of this scene of like, oh, there's a stalker. Oh, it's like 3 stalkers. Oh, just kidding, it's 5. Nope, it's 11.
Yeah.
Like, and just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
An insane number of stalkers.
Yeah. This does hit on a complaint that I have with the game, which is there are like major like things in Seattle that are just right next to these giant hordes of infected that no one has cleared out. And like you get that some where it's like, even with the hospital of like, oh, downstairs is really bad, but we're upstairs. But like that makes sense.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah, and like
we're just going to exist in the same building.
It's a hospital. You do need the resources there more. So it feels more justified to take that risk. But here, this is like a wolf like base. And there's just this building that they don't interact with. Like, presumably because they know it's crawling with infected. And like, you're going to really tell me y'all never took the time to clear that out? Like that seems
y'all didn't send a huge squad in there to clear it out. Yeah. Valid complaint.
Yeah. And again, that's not a show complaint as much as it's a complaint.
Just
about
a general world building complaint.
Yeah. And so, but I did like this scene. I like that this ties back to the idea that like, yeah, Ellie, you're immune from bites, but you're not immune from being ripped apart. Like Ellie's humanity is here. I wish this was a little less Deus Ex Machina with like, Jesse happens to find them at the exact moment that they need saving. Like, I wish that was a little different. And then I love the park. I love that we get to see, like, again, the brutality of the Seraphites. And we get this as a callback to the previous episode with Isaac, this idea of like, it doesn't matter while we're fighting. It doesn't matter who broke the truce. We are fighting and we will fight. Like, and then we see this other side of it with them disemboweling the wolf soldier. And then, of course, when Dina gets shot, I like that as an excuse to, like, lay her up more than, like, she has really bad morning sickness from the game. Yeah. I like that there's actually, like, more of a physical reason versus just, like, a side effect of the pregnancy. Yeah. And then hospital, Sneaky says in chat, I like that we finally get to see Ellie unleash her grief and anger at Nora. Felt like the rage that Ellie has in game is not on display in the show. I do like that Ellie, I feel like this is a hard line of like, Ellie, it's hard to humanize a character that is all about rage in the same way as it is in the game. But I do wish there was more of it. And I'm really glad that we got to see this scene. And I'm really glad that we also got the return of the spores of why like, I like the idea that the cordyceps are not spores in the show. I do also wish, or I do also really like that they bring them back for this moment as this, like, level up for, like, not just the Rat King that we as fans know is lurking in the hospital, but that it's so bad here, the infection works differently. Yeah. And I think that's super cool.
It has been sitting there for long enough that it has changed everything.
Yeah. And what do you think of this one?
Yeah. This episode felt the most like gameplay to me out of the entire season as an episode. Like it felt the most like what you spend most of your time doing in the game, which is traveling from one place to another, trying to avoid bad people, fighting infected things, and with some relationship building thrown in there, which I enjoyed as a bit of a break from the other episodes being like a lot of character building and storytelling and stuff, which was great. I did love the basement stuff in the hospital with Ellie, it did help bring back in that this is ultimately essentially a justice revenge quest for Ellie, going after Nora. Of like, we hadn't seen Ellie really interact with a lot of people who were from that original group until this moment, and she just essentially blows a gasket and is like, gets reminded of what she's really doing and goes evil mode, so to say. And that's another scenario of them essentially doing the scene very similar to the game. And it's brutal. And it's just, the whole episode overall was pretty enjoyable for me, of just in terms of like it feeling a lot like sitting there playing the game on a Saturday afternoon or whatever, which I liked. I would have loved to see Tommy in this episode.
Yeah, because we don't see Tommy.
He's just referenced in this episode.
He's just referenced.
Yeah.
And we don't see him for the rest of the season. Like, he's just referenced.
No, we see him at the very end.
I guess, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Like, he's on the ground. But, like, in terms of, like, dialogue, he's not in.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I would have loved to have once. Yeah. But, you know, I did, again, also love the spores being brought back in, because I do remember when they announced that they were changing how the infection worked, I was being like, but the spores, the gas masks, that's cool. Like, that's a great indicator of like you can't, it's easier for it to spread that way. But I do love getting to see that brought back in as a callback. So
we have 2 more episodes. We're going to have to kind of hurry since it is getting late. But next up we have The Price, which is a series of flashbacks that focuses on Joel and Ellie during Ellie's 15th, 16th, and 17th and 19th birthday. I think it skips 18. And so on her 15th birthday, he gets a homemade cake and guitar from Seth. Again, throwback to Seth. On her 16th birthday, he takes her to the museum where we get the space exploration exhibit. 17th birthday, we get a moment of intimacy between Ellie and one of the women that she was on patrol with in episode 1 at the supermarket. And then we also find out about the tattoo in that. And then on her 19th birthday, we have her first patrol, which is where Eugene, we find out finally about what happened to Eugene. Not just that Joel killed him while he was bitten, but also that Joel then tried to lie to Gale about what happened. Then this is also the moment that Ellie realizes that Joel lied, in a pretty major change from the game. And then we then get the 9 months later, after the New Year's Eve dance, we finally get the confirmation that we as fans have known for a while, that Ellie did go and talk to Joel after she walked by at the end of that night. She did return to talk to him. So for this episode, I liked the structure of like, I love it when we pop in for like significant days, like birthdays, like multiple years in a row, and kind of get to see like this like snapshot of this this relationship grows. And I thought that was really cool. And then I do like that we find out that, again, with Eugene, it's not just that Joel killed him. It's that Joel tried to lie. And tried to cover up what actually, I say cover up, tried to do what he thought would make things easier for Gale, which was lying, but that's not what Gale needed. Gale wanted the truth. And so I liked that we got to see that is where her animosity comes from, not just because Joel shot Eugene after he was infected. So, and then for the final flashback, I'm kind of sad that we got this early. The final scene, this is like the final scene of the game, or one of the final scenes of the game, is her on the porch talking to Joel and saying that she wants to like repair the relationship. They like, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I want to try. And having it this early is definitely a change. I understand from a Pedro scheduling standpoint why you would do this, but like, I would definitely have.
But you could always film it and then hold on to it for the end of 3.
Exactly. That's exactly what I would have liked to have seen. Is teases
like,
of
yeah,
this,
he's a busy man. Get him when you can, and then edit that scene, put it on like 5 different hard drives, and those 5 different hard drives out with. This is literally how the film industry works. You put all this stuff on 5 different hard drives, hand it off to 5 different producers, 4 producers and 1 editor, and then they all go on their way and put those in very safe, secure spots. And then one day someone calls them up and goes, "Hey, I need the thing," and they go, "Great, here it is."
I definitely agree. I wish that they would have banged this and they would have teased this like in the episode with the confirmation that Ellie comes and walks on to the porch again, but don't show the scene yet. I think would have been super cool. But what do you think of this episode?
I totally agree with you with the porch scene. I mean, if I were in the editing room, I would have absolutely pushed to hold on to that until season 3. Everything else about this episode makes it my favorite episode of the season. Mm-hmm. Like, this is almost entirely the DLC. And it's so fun, and I loved getting to see, more of that relationship between Ellie and and just it goes back to Gail existing as a therapist, but it's just this guy who's been thrust back into fatherhood trying to celebrate his not technically adopted daughter's birthday for her in a post-apocalyptic world where resources aren't really the easiest thing and gifts aren't super easy to come by. So it was a fun moment of just like lighthearted and like trying to really build on that relationship between the two of them.
And then shout out to the space scene, just as like kind of like the guitar, such an important scene from the game. And then getting to see that basically like scene for scene in this. So
contribution back to that, because that reminded me of this. But I saw part of an interview or something where I think it was Neil Druckmann who was saying that when they started working on the games, he had asked Ashley Johnson what she had wanted to be when she was a kid, what she wanted to be when she grew up, or what she wanted to do. And she had said that she wanted to go to space. And then she asked, gosh dang it, I have up on my wall, the guy Baker. Who plays, thank you. He asked Troy Baker the same thing. I forget what his response was.
And he was a musician.
Musician, there we go. And he then built both of those things into their characters for them. And I think that's so cool. And just like, he was like, yeah, like our actors are as much the characters as the characters are themselves. So I love that he put those things in for them.
Final episode. And Sneaky says Druckmann says that in one of the podcast episodes. And I think that has been brought up before as well, but he does reiterate it, I believe, in this episode, the podcast episode about this episode. So, so final episode, Convergence. Ellie regroups with Dina and Jesse, where she is shaken by her own brutality against Nora. She reveals to Dina that what Joel did at the hospital and prompting Dina to suggest they return home. Ellie and Jesse intercept the Wolf radio call about a sniper, who Jesse believes is Tommy. Jesse goes to pursue Tommy while Ellie commandeers a motorboat to try to get to the aquarium, which she has learned from Nora is where Abby could be. Ellie then washes up on the Seraphite Island, finds another motorboat. This was the most
random scene. I'm sorry.
This is my biggest complaint about the season is this, like, why does she end up on this Seraphite Island? I think it's awful writing. I think it should have been cut. I think it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Ellie enters the aquarium and finds Owen and Mel. She holds them at gunpoint and demands further information about Abby's whereabouts. Owen goes to grab a gun. Ellie shoots him, and the bullet strikes Mel, who then begs Ellie to deliver her baby as she dies. Jesse and Tommy rescue Ellie, and they return to the theater. Abby ambushes them, where Jesse is killed and Tommy is injured, and Ellie is held at gunpoint. A gunshot rings out, and then we get like a fade to black and find ourselves 3 days earlier, where Manny wakes up Abby, informing her that Abby has summoned them. So, as we were saying, I hate Seraphied Island here. Like, they've said that was something they had considered in the game and got cut for time, and it should have been cut for time here. Like,
yeah, it was so random. It didn't feed into anything. Didn't support anything. Like, they could have just had had Ellie watch the wolf people leave the docks, and then when she was in the boat, seen the place explode.
Yeah,
and it would have communicated the same thing, just more effectively, while leaving some things to the imagination.
Yeah. And then, it doesn't even like paint it doesn't even paint the Seraphites in a different way. Like, this is exactly what we would have expected for them based on how they've been presented so far in the show. And so again, this feels like a complete waste of time. And is the scene that I would most cut if I was an editor in the editing bay for this episode.
You and me both. You and me both. And I'm an editor.
And then, yes, and that's much more likely that you could have been there to do that. And so, I do really like some of the stuff that we get at the beginning of this episode with Ellie and Jesse, of them kind of having to come to grips of like what's up with their relationship. What is this, like, again, awkward love triangle that generally speaking I wish wasn't as big of a thing, but this feels like a very realistic thing of like Jesse knows that Dina loves Ellie in a way she doesn't love him, and like he knows that him trying to be a parent to their kid is going to look different because of that. And I think that's really cool. I think that was a cool like moment there. I also like that we get the return of Shimmer, who has survived.
Yay, Shimmer!
So I love that we get that reference. And then I love the change here to Mel's death, where in the game, like and again, much more brutal Abby, or much more brutal Ellie, where like Ellie stabs Mel and then finds out Mel is pregnant. I like this idea of, again, the company you keep. Like, Owen takes an action that then leads to Ellie shooting him and hitting Mel. And then just like the brutality of her being like, hey, emergency C-section. I need you to do this right now.
Yeah.
And like Ellie having no clue how to do that. And like that overwhelming feeling of like.
Which is, I mean, anyone asking that, whether or not they're dying.
Understandable.
Like, a horrifying scenario to be in. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I liked that change. And I like that that it's brutal, but it's brutal in a different way.
Yeah. It's brutal because in part it was unintentional.
Yes. And I liked that we get again, I referenced this earlier, we get a throwback to Joel here with the you're going to both point on the map and you better both point to the same spot. Yep. I really like that. I like this idea of Ellie like trying to play Joel and it doesn't work.
No.
We already referenced it. Man, Jesse gets done. Like is like has this like compelling moment and then just like runs out, gets shot. Oh, we do get Tommy talking here in the theater. I forgot that we do have this.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have him talking with Ellie. I forgot that happened. And so, and then Jesse's just like awkwardly standing behind him. That's what that happens.
Yeah.
Then we get to see Caitlin again as Abby. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
Again, we get this very like the we let you live. How dare you throw your life away? And so yeah. What do you think of our finale?
Yeah, I am much more neutral on this finale. I feel like Ellie is a bit too, not like goofball-y, but like a bit too willy-nilly almost, in that like she's trying to play Joel rather than mimic him in learning or whatever, as more of a theatrics rather than like revenge quest almost, which is fine, or can work out. I'll have to see how the next season ends up. But yeah, again, the random island scene, didn't need it, pointless, whatever. It definitely to me feels much more like a transitional episode from shifting from Ellie to Abby as the POV rather than like being the finale of a season. Which if this were a 14, 15 episode season, it would work out great, but it didn't feel like a big build up to anything. But Jesse going down was just as brutal here as it was in the game. You don't see it coming, and then it just happens in like 2 seconds, and he's down, and you're like, oh boy, okay.
They got him.
Oh man, they got him good. And it's horrifying. But yeah, I don't have super strong feelings one way or the other. I didn't love the episode, but I don't think it was super terrible either.
Yeah, I think this goes back to our recent Spoilercast on Daredevil Born Again, where my biggest complaint about the ending of that show is that doesn't feel like a finale. It feels like a mid-season, and that obviously for this, like, this isn't the end of the game. Like, this is the transition point, as you were saying, but like having this be the end of the season when like there really is no resolution.
There's
which
not.
is, of course, how it's intended in the game. But like have us not getting more after this for 2 years, I think makes this very rough when it comes to like being a finale. And so and then those are the episodes. I liked doing the episode format. We'll try to return to this for Doctor Who next week. But I did want to do, for the last question, I was thinking we could do this as more of a general discussion, but based on time, I think we need to keep it quicker because I need to go get ready for bed. So for the next season, we presumably are going to get the second half of the game, at least Abby's story. What is one or two things from that part of the game that you're really looking forward to, or what is something that you would like to see generally in the next season?
Oh, jeez, I haven't played the full game in a while. General thought is I don't think they should do a fourth season, no matter how that looks. I think they should do a longer third season and just finish out the game in that third season. Have it be longer than 7 episodes. I know with the way sets and productions and things are run now, it probably won't end up being that way. But it's my personal opinion that it should be that way, knowing how, just in general, how the second half of the game goes. I don't think splitting it up is going to benefit the show in any way, shape, or form. I do really just hope that whole fight between Abby and Ellie at the end is like really, as head butting, and like there's all of that emotional conflict as well as physical in the way that it needs to, because that is really the point of the whole second game, is essentially your dad killed my dad, so I killed your dad in response, and now you're coming after me. Like this domino effect of people going after people for hurting people they care about, and it comes down to Ellie and Abby, and are they going to break the cycle or not? So
my big thing kind of builds off that of like, I want the fights to matter. There's like 3 major fights remaining in the game. There's the 2 Abby Ellie fights, the one that we get teased at the end of this episode. Then there's the one in Santa Barbara. Of like, I want both of those to feel good. And then the Rat King fight of like, I want, like, the Rat King is so scary and intimidating to play against. And they've done great with this so far with the infected. But like, my fear is like, how do you show that intimidation in a way that's not hokey? Of like, and so that's kind of my thing. And like, because we're going to have to see Abby fight a stalker. Like, that's part of the Rat King is a stalker.
Oh,
and so
I have another little thing. I do want to see her thing of being scared of heights.
Oh yeah,
because that's a big thing in the game.
So like, we do see the
So that's just a little thing.
But yeah, so that is where we're gonna wrap our spoiler cast. Great conversation. Loved going episode by episode, and so I don't know. We won't always be able to do that, but it worked great for this. But yeah, let us know, chat, viewers. Leave a comment, like, comment, all those things. Let us know what you thought. What are your feelings of The Last of Us season 2? What are you looking forward to for season 3? Look forward to us next week when we chat Doctor Who spoiler cast as well. And so now that's where we wrap so I can get to bed. We are First Geek 411. You can find us around the internet and join our Discord server. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out the Redbubble store. Watch live on Twitch and YouTube, and then find the VODs over on YouTube. Then you can also find us at our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittil.
Mine is I am not prepared with an I am the prepared.
And it's been a great week.
Don't die.
Endure and survive.